So the next team is Seamaster, and they will talk about maritime safety management in pandemic era, focusing on passenger ships. Please welcome Team Seamaster.
Hello everyone, we are Seamaster.
We have a very exciting proposal for you.
It has been an extremely tough journey for us to come here, but we think it was only possible because we relied on each other as a team and because we put the best of our abilities together.
We hope that our proposal is insightful and you can resonate with us and understand why this is an important issue in the international maritime community.
Thank you. Please enjoy our presentation. Bye.
Good morning, Honorable Secretary of the IMO, fellow delegates, and esteemed guests. We are Team Seamaster, and it is an honor for us to present on the maritime safety management in the pandemic era, focusing on passenger ships. The contents of our presentation are the following: the introduction, the background, overview, problem analysis, proposals, and last but not least, the conclusion. To start off, the introduction will focus on a recent maritime event that has caught global attention, definitions outlining the area of focus, and why our proposal is necessary. On February 3rd, one passenger was tested positive for COVID-19 within the Diamond Princess cruise ship, which eventually led to a mass contagion. Without effective measures, the conditions within the ship amplified an already highly infectious disease. Through this, we saw the grave importance and the need for specific protocols. For specification on what a passenger ship atones to, we have defined it as a ship that carries more than 12 passengers and is at least 500 gross tonnage. This is due to the fact that it is most prone to large casualties in regard to infectious disease on board. Once this is established, we believe that this prevention can be projected onto other relevant ships in similar situations. Highlighting the devastating Diamond Princess cruise incident, comprehensive protocols are needed for the following reasons. To begin with, it provides safety awareness. This is important because passengers and crew members have the right to know how to prevent and take precaution against infectious disease on board. Moreover, future precaution leads to prior preparation for pandemic situations in the future. Furthermore, competent authorities have the responsibility to protect passengers and crew members from any harm or danger that can be caused on board. Lastly, quick reaction to emergencies results in more effective and readily available procedures against mass pandemic outbreaks. This delegation proposes to MSC and TCC. Our goal is to implement efficient pandemic control on passenger ships. This goes under IMO's Strategic Direction 7, which is to ensure organizational effectiveness by enforcing our plans under two different time periods, biennium and 6 years. Now we will overview the background. We will be looking at two relevant documents. The STCW Convention of 1978 centers around issuing and managing certificates for seafarers based on the minimum level of competence divided into 3 levels of responsibilities. The key contents focus on the guidance of medical certificates and their compliance to plan, execute, and follow with such standards. The progress of IMO guidelines specific for COVID-19 can be divided into 3 distinct periods. The early period before WHO's declaration of the pandemic can further be distinguished into 2 different parts. The pre-Diamond Princess term focused more on general reports and was considered a regional issue amongst Asia, whereas in the post-Diamond Princess term, more of the IHR and WHO guidelines were implemented. Despite this progression, no specific guidelines were yet produced by the IMO. The middle period focuses on basic guidelines regarding the COVID-19. What differentiates the middle period from the early period is that the latter focuses on more general guidelines, whereas the other focuses on more specific guidelines, which are more apt for the COVID-19 situation. Currently, there is still a lack of detailed framework in the ongoing period regarding the COVID-19. But the guidelines have progressed to show more details addressing responsible actors. This gives hope for a creation of a more suitable framework that is more apt for the pandemic situation. Now, the second speaker will talk about the problem analysis.
Through analyzing the IMO guidelines and the STCW, we have found three basic problems in the current maritime disease control of the passenger ships. The first problem is regarding the disintegrated database between the two organizations. The first one is the WHO database, which is in charge of disease information. And the another database is an IMO database, which is in charge of port and ship information, which is also called Ldcs in this case. The problem with the disintegrated databases is that the ship people, countries, and the international organization will not realize which ship has a possible contaminations until ship approaches the port. For instance, in case of the Diamond Princess, the country Japan and Hong Kong and the IMO, WHO did not notice the infected cases until the first infected cases was found in Hong Kong. And by looking at this, we realized that there should be a comprehensive database in order to have a firm and immediate solutions for the disease control. Second problem is regarding the lack of pandemic protocols in the STCW. Firstly, in Chapter 2, Standards and Guidance regarding the Master and Deck Department, Table 2/2 has no specific competent measurement for the pandemic situation and is only limited to the situation of physical damages to the ship. Secondly, in the section B-1/9, guidance regarding medical standards, in table B-1/9, emergency duties on board are limited to escape, firefighting, and evacuation, not on the diseases. The last problem is regarding the status quo of the situation and the incapability of least developing countries. According to the World Health Organization, it was estimated that 89 million medical masks are required for COVID-19 every month, along with 76 million gloves and 1.8 million medical goggles. The graphs in the presentation is showing how many countries are having export controls on the medical supplies. It is estimated that there are total of 191 export controls within 90 jurisdictions after COVID-19 outbreaks. And it includes South Korea and China, the main exporter of the medical supplies such as masks and gloves. And it is also backed up by Asian Development Bank, stating that trade restriction and export bans in more than 20 economies also exacerbate the problems of the PPE production and distribution. By combining these three facts, we can examine that there are three insufficiencies in the Ldcs, which can be described as three no's. Firstly, no medical supplies, since other countries are not exporting the medical supplies. Secondly, no medical facilities, especially in the port area. This is problematic since port is a place where people exit and enters. Without adequate medical facilities, the countries cannot have preventive measures to protect their citizens and the people within the passenger ships. Thirdly, since they lack knowledge and the know-how to deal with these mass infectious diseases, they have no quarantine or epidemiological capability. In order to solve this problem, we have came up with three-step approaches that will correspond to our strategic plans of the IMO. To reiterate our strategic plan is implementation of efficient pandemic control on passenger ship, which will be under SD7, ensure globalization effectiveness, and it will be managed by MSC and TCC. And we have divided the plans corresponding to the fundamental execution plans for the other IMO plans, which is biennium 2-year execution plan and 6 years long-term plan. And we have furthermore precisely named these execution plans as three-step approaches, which we have divided the biennium plans into short-term and procedural legal approaches. The reason that we have divided the execution plans into two parts is that our delegation believes that data management is the most urgent matter to be resolved. As we have mentioned in the problem analysis section, without comprehensive data management, there will not be any further firm cooperation between port, ships, countries, port states, and the international organizations. Now I will hand over my mic to our last speaker.
Thank you. Our short-term approach is to establish temporal epidemiological information module on Jesus, recognizing the need for a comprehensive database between IMO and WHO. The process works as ships transfer the data to flag state, then it will be recorded on Jesus, which will be accessed by the port state and IMO and WHO. Maintaining the module for every single situation is financially and administratively burdensome. However, to save time and money and increase efficiency, we suggest utilizing the phased application of the epidemiological information module on Jesus. From phase 1 to 4, the module would be inactive. However, in phase 5, WHO will declare widespread human inspection, which will require reporting duties on Jesus for those members in the affected region. Then the situation escalates to phase 6, then declares the pandemic, then reporting duties on Jesus will be required for all member states. Now we'll move into how ships can collect their medical information on board. This is a health screening questionnaire for passengers and temporary visitors. We have amended and added 8 additional elements to the existing EU guidance, as you can see here. This is health screening questionnaire for crew members, which we have adopted for IMO COVID-19 recommended framework. This is temperature records, which is kept within the ship for all people on board. Both questionnaires and daily temperature record should be collected and kept within the ship, which can be transferred directly to the flag state as soon as when possible cases arise. Once data has transferred from the ship to the flag state that will be recorded to Jesus, then it will be classified into 2 distinct categories, which is ship information and personal information. Then the cases will divide into 4 categories, which is confirmed case, possible case, and probable case, and contacts. As previously mentioned, STCW lacks in adequately preparing seafarers in dealing with mass infectious disease. To ameliorate this, we suggest fundamental guidelines which the future amendments to STCW must follow. Especially, we want to focus on 2 elements. First, changes should take from top to bottom. Second, designation of medical manager who the master of the ship deemed competent is necessary. Our first amendment is to add 2 elements to the second column. First, add preparation of quarantine plans and designation of medical manager and isolation area in cases of outbreak of infectious disease on board. Second, add immediate report to be made to competent authorities of next port of call, flag state, and company. Then the second amendment is add onboard quarantine measures to the first column, and to the second column, follow given quarantine procedures in cases of mass contagion. Now to the port quarantine facilities. All ports are essential for facilitating international maritime trade. They must have effective port quarantine facilities to treat patients and decontaminate ships. By having this process, ships that have reported, confirmed, and possible case can get immediate assistance from the port of next call, and this procedure will be highly essential for LDC nations. It is very important to ensure monitoring and advisory of those member states' compliance to follow through these 2 distinct phases. In the phase 1, IMO regional offices will conduct real-time video inspection for initially monitoring purposes, and phase 2 will move into IMO directly dispatching their officers for direct monitoring, and member states and regional offices will follow this 8 basic checklists to comply with the given measures. For the long-term approach, which will be pursued throughout 6 years, LDC ports are insufficient and they are not yet prepared to control such crisis. IMO and member states can work together to create a sustainable framework to implement successful capacity building for LDCs. IMO has appropriate instruments and funds to realize this by diverging the Integrated Technical Cooperation Program, ITCP, and TC funds to create medical facilities and quarantine facilities in affected region. Now we'll move into conclusion. We have witnessed the greatest shift in maritime safety since Diamond Princess incident, and the impact of COVID-19 will last decades to come. To prepare for the new normal, our final proposal is maritime safety management in pandemic era focusing on passenger ships. The goal of this proposal is the implementation of efficient pandemic control on passenger ships under SD7. We encourage the three-steps approaches. Short-term and legal approaches will be executed in the 2 years time frame, and long-term approaches will be executed within 6 years time frame. In the short-term approaches, as we previously mentioned, we should establish new epidemiological information module on the existing framework of GSIS. Then moving into procedural legal approaches, 2 necessary amendments must be made to the SCCW, and the port quarantine facilities must be established in all member states, especially LDC nations. And long-term approaches should include financial support through ITCP for LDC nations. IMO's founding principle is to ensure maritime safety. Our proposal is essential and should be pursued with the utmost priority in the committee to eradicate possible dangers facing our daily norms. Thank you. We were Seamasters.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please raise your hands. Yeah, from Judge first.
Thank you for your presentation. However, I'm not the native speaker, and so maybe we call to your speech is automobile speeching. Maybe many the people it's not easy to understand your presentation. So I would like to the question, 2 questions. The idea in this pandemic era is appropriate in a time being. How to know to the suspicious person is or not on the passenger seat? How to guess the information from the suspicious person on board? That is one question. Another one is the first times, the cases, the pilot, pilot is the first time contact to on passenger ship or other type of ships. How to the response, how to obtain the pilot safety against the COVID-19. That is my question.
Thank you, Judge, for your very valuable question. For the first one, we believe that we have developed the 4 classifications of the probable cases, and the crew members and all passengers and temporary visitors must have to fill their health screening questionnaires before they come on board. So we already have a previous information established within the ship. Then such information can be directly transferred when suspicion cases appears, when the person appears with coughing or have the symptoms that have appeared to be mass infectious disease.
And in addition to that, we have also had proposal for the amending STCW so that the masters and the passenger ship the crew members will notify and learn how to actually deal with those kind of suspicious cases. And we acknowledge that in regard with the pandemic situation, and especially in the COVID-19, there are people with no symptoms. And in this case, we will not know this until they have found symptoms. However, since we have continuously has mentioned that there will be a self-questionnaire form every day within the passenger ship, and if there is a possible cases, they will provide a self-quarantine places to be for the protection of the prevention of the mass contagions. So we personally believe that in case of suspicious case, we can deal with our proposal by 2 measures. First is by the amendments of STCW, where crew members are actually educated to those kind of situations. And secondly, by having a self-questionnaire form, which people can actually identify who has actually those kind of symptoms.
Thank you. And for the second question, you have asked how the pilot has many responsibilities, and we want to designate a medical manager within the ship who the master of the ship deemed competent. So the medical manager will actually collect those information needed and have all those information on board and transfer those information to their flag state, and that information will be directly recorded on the GSIS.
In addition, the reason that we have actually included the port controls and measurements and those checklists for the self-advisory panel is to separate the master, especially the masters, from the passengers, so that they can be protected when they're leaving and they're disembarking and embarking from the ships, so that we can have a minimum contact with other people in case of the pilots and the masters of the ships. Thank you.
Thank you. The answer. I'd like to some comments to the response to the pandemic, the suspicious person on the passenger ships. And so first one is communications between the port state and the on board, between two of us. Another one is a custom cooperation. Another one is a Coast Guard cooperation. Maybe I think it's some more the big corporations communication, and so the passenger ship is so many people on board, and so is to the many obstacles in case of so. We understand that to the Japanese case is very the speedily to the expansion on board.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your comments. So let's go to the next question from participants. Any question from right side? From me? You will get more score if you ask more questions. So please feel free to ask. Okay. Umpire, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you for an insightful proposal on mitigating pandemic on ship side and port side. However, we have question on actually accepting the feasibility of your solution in which we're urging ports for quarantine facility. IMO currently has no jurisdiction over ports at the moment. How is it possible to implement quarantine facilities at ports despite this limitation? And also, what if the port states refuse passengers to leave the ship, just like the Diamond Princess incident, like the team has mentioned? Thank you.
Firstly, you have mentioned that IMO has no jurisdiction of the control of the port. However, we have believed that in the IMO guideline, it has been mentioned that the port mentioned the possibility and of the IMO inspection of the ports. And we have further elaborated that our solution will be the IMO implementation of the advisory panel, so that the ports, especially LDCs who are incapable of those medical facilities, can actually implement those self-quarantine facilities within the ports. And as we have in international law-wise, we can say that as soon as the countries are signed the treaty of the joining the IMO, they have some obligation to follow the IMO guidelines and the IMO inspection.
And also, with the outbreak of COVID-19, we think that in the international community, especially the maritime trade, we have a very general understanding and consensus established between all member states that we need effective quarantine facilities in the ports, so that actually the affected patients will be separated and they will be actually treated with care. So we believe that it is already there. So we need to just make sure that port states agree to us, and especially LDC ports need those capabilities. So through IPCP and PC Fund, we can help them to have those facilities in need and make sure that patients are cared and they can be safely transferred to their homes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay. So Mayor Salataris, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for your fantastic presentation regarding the measures to mitigatory measures for a pandemic on board passenger ships. Well, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I would like to know how the TC relates to this issue, because as far as I know, TC deals with developing countries, and I would like to know how you would utilize the TC funds, and secondly, for the STCW, a medical officer on board a ship is usually a second officer, and I would like to know how you would grant the validity of the validity of the reports that the medical manager or the officer makes, because the medical certificates only contain details about the fitness of the seafarers. Thank you.
I think you just focus on one question.
One question.
Whatever you
Okay,
want to
thank
answer,
you.
yeah.
Okay. So we want to first say for the TCC, I think it's quite actually really related to TCC because that actually LDCs is least developed countries, so they are quite developing countries. So we're assessing those developing countries, those ports that have not had yet established the effective port quarantine facilities, have actually received financial cooperation assistance from the IMO and member states voluntarily.
And to respond to the second question regarding STCW, all the crew members has medical certificates. And what we have emphasized is that masters are actually designate the medical staffs within those crew members who has medical certificates to actually have a disease control. And for the validity of the reports, as we have mentioned in the report, the phase 2 report is based on the inadequacy of the first report, and it can be mentioned not only by the self-report of the nations, but also the third party, such as the ships who has actually embarked in the ports, can report to the IMO to resolve those problems of the inadequacy. Thank you.